Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Allison. I'm a pianist and a piano teacher, and thanks so much for tuning in. Today, I decided to talk about the one thing that every musician has struggled with at least once in their life, and that is forgetting. The opposite of memorizing. The one thing that we all don't want to do on recital day, right? Or in any way. We don't want to forget our pieces. We work so hard to memorize our pieces. The last thing we want to do is forget them. I'm guessing you've memorized a piece before. You know, you played in front of all your friends. You probably impressed them. You did your due diligence. You learned the chord progressions, the music theory behind the piece. You did all your muscle memory, drilling in all those passages. You knew that piece inside and out. You could probably play it with your eyes closed. You worked hard to get that piece memorized. You probably worked just as hard as it was for me to get a Christmas tree out of my piano room. Yeah, I've memorized countless pieces, but I've also forgotten countless pieces.
Oh, so you have to carry the whole tree upstairs?
Does this mean that I didn't correctly memorize those pieces that I've learned in the past?
Oh no.
No, I knew all those pieces to the T. I knew them. I knew all the music theory behind them. I did all the drilling. I put in my time, but I still forgot them because our brains are built different. They're actually built to forget stuff. And why would they do that? Why would that happen? Well, it kind of makes sense if you think about it. Sometimes you have to get rid of the old to come in with the new, right? Get rid of that Christmas tree out of your piano room so you can make room for new decor and, you know, bring in the Happy New Year. Our brains go through this process called active forgetting. And actually, it isn't as bad as you might think. In fact, it might actually be beneficial. And before your jaw drops too much about this whole idea of forgetting being positive, let's take a look into the science behind forgetting. The new science of forgetting? 11-minute read! Let's take a look. Forgetting is the inability to recall information that was previously stored in your short-term or long-term memory, and it's often a gradual decay. Take a look at this image presented of the brain of a zebrafish from that Time magazine article that I was talking about earlier. I'm not going to go into detail because I'm not a scientist, I'm just a piano player. Basically, some researchers from a really fancy university taught this specific zebrafish an important lesson that they wanted it to remember. And they captured the zebrafish creating that memory on camera. So what you're seeing right now is that the small and green-white dots represent the zebrafish's brain before the exercise that they wanted the fish to learn. But then guess what happened? The tiny little fish was overcome with learning something new. Oh no! All of a sudden, the fish was overwhelmed. It started learning a new memory, the thing that they wanted it to learn. And here's what they saw on camera. Each yellow dot represented a new synaptic connection formed, but the blue dots represented a connection lost. In layman terms, the old memories that the zebrafish used to have are now gone. Now it's inserting this brand new memory. Well, what happened? Well, the zebrafish is so tiny it forgot everything to learn this new thing that the scientists wanted it to learn. So it started forgetting. Do you see what I'm talking about? And just like the zebrafish, you forget stuff too. And actually, there was a guy in the late 19th century who was equally intrigued by this crazy phenomenon called forgetting. In the late 19th century, there lived a German professor named Hermann Ebbinghaus. And he conducted an experiment. Here's the details of his very famous experiment. Ebbinghaus memorized long lists of syllables and then tested his remembrance of all of those syllables at different time intervals. And what he created was called the forgetting curve. Ebbinghaus ended up with 2,300 syllables. Once he created this collection of nonsensical syllables, he would pull out a number of random syllables and write them down in a notebook. Then, to the regular sound of a metronome and with the same voice inflection, he would read out the syllables and attempt to recall them at the end of the procedure. One investigation alone required 15,000 recitations. Huh? And after his investigation, he came up with this idea called the forgetting curve. The forgetting curve is a graphical model that shows how people forget over time. It shows that people forget information quickly at first, but then the rate of forgetting slows down over time. There are ways of combating the curve, for example, active recall or spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is a learning technique that involves reviewing material at regular intervals to improve memory and reduce the time spent studying. Think about that forgetting curve. Every time you review, you actually minimize the amount of time you would have spent to learn that material than the first time you did. Spaced repetition is basically like this. I had learned Amazing Grace maybe 7 or 8 years ago. When I first learned Amazing Grace, I would play it every day. Then I would play it once every couple days, and then I would do once a week, and then I would do once a month, and then once every 6 months, and then the intervals kept getting bigger, and now I can play it even after maybe a couple months after I've played it. It's so crowded in here. Now, most people would agree that forgetting is kind of a glitch in the human memory system. A failure of the human existence. Oh gosh. Quite the contraire. I always wanted to say that. Forgetting is actually a whole force on its own. Scott A. Small, not a small professor, a professor of neurology at Columbia University, states, "The fundamental insight, the eureka, I think, of the new science of forgetting is that our neurons are endowed with a completely separate set of mechanisms that are dedicated to active forgetting." Kind of like the zebrafish. He admits that just because our brain does this doesn't make it productively useful in a way. But he does suggest that this active forgetting might serve a greater purpose. Our brain obviously thinks it's important. If we have these dedicated ninjas somehow working against us, why would they do that? Alright, let me get out of here. Many researchers are actually pointing to the fact that this forgetting mechanism might be some sort of a decluttering mechanism. Ah yes, decluttering. That's something my mom would understand. Every day we are inundated with information. Imagine if your brain held on to every detail of our mundane existence. Like, what did Allison do at 7:06 a.m.? Even I don't want to remember that. If you ask any memory scientist on the value of forgetting, they might point you to a fictional short story written by Jorge Luis Borges. Try saying that 3 times. He was an Argentine short story and essayist. Funes the Memorious is a story about Funes, a young boy who loses the ability to forget and lives only 2 more years after this happens. Funes' world becomes unbearable due to the pressure of his memories, and he finds it difficult to sleep. The story illustrates the idea that we don't benefit from storing irrelevant or outdated information. It anticipated neuroscience discoveries about the brain's abilities to actively prune away memories. And here's some key quotes from the story. "My memory, sir, is like a garbage heap." Basically, Funes is saying, I don't care that I can remember everything photographically, basically. It's a garbage heap because I can't think of anything else. Nothing is really made more important than anything else. Everything is kind of equal. What I ate for breakfast is as equal as something crazy that happened that should have been more memorable than what I ate for breakfast. The author of the story wrote, "To think is to forget a difference, to generalize, to abstract." By chiseling away certain memories that might be irrelevant, we actually cement the more important memories after all. We effectively generalize information about past music into schemas. Maybe instead of just learning every single note of the Abegg variations, I learned certain patterns that I can remember till this day. Instead of remembering every single piece that I've ever played, I end up creating more room in my brain for free-flowing highway to learn more interesting pieces in the future. It's not that I've forgotten the pieces that I've played in the past, but now I've freed up my mind to be able to consume more information. The possibility to maybe learn more music faster than we would have ever done before. I think it's snowing. I better get out of here.
Kitty.
Can I tell you a secret? Sometimes I actually don't engage in spaced repetition or active recall, because sometimes I only have 45 minutes to practice. And plus, as you all know, old pieces take a lot of maintenance. I'll never be able to get to the level I've been able to play at certain pieces. For example, like one time I played the Chopin Ballade, and that took a lot of time and effort, and I had that whole piece memorized. But am I going to spend hours and hours a day to try to keep that up? No, because I already got all the information I needed to get out of that piece. I enjoyed the process, and now it's time to move on. It's time to take the Christmas tree out of my brain and learn new pieces by Chopin. I only got about 45 minutes to practice sometimes. I mean, I got a lot to do. I'm making a YouTube video. This is taking a long time. I guess it's all about your goals. Maybe you're a person who's interested in performing pieces flawlessly and being able to perform without the book, and there's nothing wrong with that. Lots of pianists do that, like Lang Lang or Yuja Wang or anybody else. They get paid for doing that too, so it's great to be able to do that. But there's another side of the spectrum. Maybe you're just interested in learning a new piece, and then, you memorized it, and now you're ready to move on. There is no shame in that. Don't ever let anyone make you feel that you have to memorize every single piece and never forget any of them, because it's just simply not possible, unless you engage in these techniques that we mentioned earlier. It's okay to push towards the prize of learning new pieces and gaining new insights and generalizing information that you've learned from past pieces. No problem. You'll just have to be okay with the fact that if you do want to memorize old pieces and relearn them, well, it'll be a lot faster, because remember the forgetting curve? Every time you revisit something, that learning becomes faster than when you initially started. The amount of time it will take to relearn them in the future will be faster since you learned it in the past. Okay, so if forgetting is so important, then why are musicians encouraged to memorize music in the first place? Memorization in itself teaches us to think about something on a deeper level. It forces us to sit and chew on something for a long period of time. I've learned that the more music I memorize, the easier it is for me to do in the future. Forgetting is not always bad. It can actually train you to become a better functioning musician. Time magazine said it well. Forgetting serves us well. It tunes out useless information so we can focus on the relevant. Memories build us, and forgetting chisels away the excess, shaping the way we see ourselves and our world. Keep learning music. Maybe memorize, maybe forget. It's all good, but at least you're enjoying the process. I'll see you guys in the next video.